The champagne flute I was carrying weighed nothing compared to the exhaustion settling into my bones. My feet screamed inside the borrowed heels. Half a size too small, but beggars in medical school couldn't be choosers. The ballroom at the Belmont Grand stretched before me like something out of a fever dream. Crystal chandeliers dripping light onto marble floors, women draped in jewels that could pay my tuition 3 times over, men in tuxedos worth more than my car. I was invisible here, just another server weaving through the crowd with a practiced smile, offering canapes to people who wouldn't remember my face 5 seconds after I walked away. That's exactly how I liked it. "Excuse me, miss." A hand shot out, fingers closing around my wrist with enough pressure to make me stop. The man attached to those fingers was maybe 50, silver-haired, wearing a smile that made my skin crawl. Richard Castellano. I'd heard whispers about him from the other servers. Real estate mogul. Married. Handsome. "You're much prettier than the champagne you're serving." I pulled my wrist back firmly but politely. Years of dealing with handsy customers at various jobs had taught me the dance. "Thank you, sir. Can I get you anything else?" "Your number would be nice." His eyes traveled down my body with the subtlety of a freight train. "Not on the menu, I'm afraid." I kept my voice light, professional, already calculating my exit route. The kitchen was 20 feet to my left, the main exit obscured by at least 50 guests. "Everything has a price, sweetheart." He moved closer, and I caught the sharp tang of expensive scotch on his breath. "What's yours?" My jaw tightened. "Self-respect. Turns out it's priceless." His expression darkened, fingers reaching for my arm again. I stepped back, ready to make a scene if necessary. Scholarship be damned, when a presence materialized beside me. Not beside me, behind me. A wall of expensive cologne, and barely contained danger that made the air itself feel different. "There you are, Bella." The voice was velvet over steel, Italian accent threading through perfect English. "I've been looking everywhere for you." A hand, larger, warmer, infinitely more dangerous than Castellano's, settled on my lower back. Every instinct screamed at me to pull away, but something in the sudden pallor of Castellano's face made me freeze. "Mr. Moretti." Castellano's voice had lost its predatory edge, replaced by something that sounded uncomfortably like fear. I didn't realize she was. "I apologize." "You're apologizing to the wrong person." The hand on my back pressed slightly, guiding me forward. I caught a glimpse of my supposed savior in the mirrored wall, tall, dark-haired, wearing a tuxedo like it was a weapon. Sharp jaw, sharper eyes, and a smile that probably made grown men wet themselves. "Go on, apologize to the lady." "I'm sorry, miss." Castellano couldn't get the words out fast enough before he disappeared into the crowd like smoke. I should have thanked my mysterious rescuer and escaped while I could. Instead, I spun to face him, pulling away from that proprietary hand with more force than necessary. I had it handled. Up close, he was devastating. Dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in a single glance. Olive skin, features that belonged on a Renaissance painting. The kind of handsome that came with a warning label. "Did you?" One eyebrow arched, amusement dancing in those dangerous eyes. "Because from where I was standing, you were about to make a very powerful enemy." From where I was standing, I was about to introduce my knee to his groin. I crossed my arms, acutely aware that I was still holding a tray of champagne flutes. The absurdity of arguing with a man who radiated power while dressed as a server wasn't lost on me. "But thank you for the unnecessary rescue, Mr. Moretti. Sebastian Moretti." He said it like I should know the name. Like everyone should know the name. The thing was, I did. You didn't live in this city for more than 5 minutes without hearing about the Moretti family. Old money, older secrets, and enough power to make the mayor nervous. The kind of family that appeared in society pages and police files with equal frequency. Well, Mr. Moretti, I appreciate the gesture, but I can take care of myself. I moved a step around him, ready to get back to work before my supervisor noticed my absence. His hand caught mine, not grabbing, just touching, fingers wrapping around my wrist with surprising gentleness. Dance with me. What? I stared at him like he'd suggested we rob a bank, which, given his family's reputation, wasn't entirely off-brand. One dance. His thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, right over my racing pulse. He had to feel it, had to know the effect he was having. To complete the illusion that you're with me. Castellano's watching. If you walk away now, he'll know it was a ruse. I followed his gaze, and sure enough, Richard Castellano was lurking near the bar, eyes fixed on us with an expression that made my stomach turn. The rational part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through organic chemistry and pathophysiology, was screaming at me to refuse, to walk away from Sebastian Moretti and everything he represented. But the exhausted, frustrated part of me that was tired of being grabbed and propositioned and treated like I was invisible except when men wanted something. That part took the tray of champagne, set it on a nearby table, and placed my hand in his. One dance, I said firmly. Then I go back to work, and you forget you ever saw me. His smile could have melted steel. We'll see about that. The ballroom floor seemed to part for us as he led me toward the center. Other couples were already swaying to the orchestra's rendition of something classical and romantic, the kind of music that belonged in movies about people whose problems I couldn't fathom. Sebastian's hand found my waist, and I was suddenly aware of every point of contact between us. He was warm, solid, and held me close enough to be possessive, but not quite close enough to be improper. Years of dance lessons announced themselves in the confident way he led. "You're supposed to put your hand on my shoulder," he murmured, amusement coloring his tone. "I'm supposed to be working," I shot back, but I complied, trying to ignore how perfectly we fit together. This is insane. This is necessary. We began to move, and I was grateful for the ballroom dance class my mother had insisted on when I was 13. Castellano needs to believe you're under my protection. Otherwise, he'll try again. Your protection? I looked up at him, really looked, and saw something flicker in those dark eyes. I'm not some damsel who needs... I know exactly what you are. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the crowd around us. You're clever, stubborn, and too brave for your own good. You're also exhausted, working at least 2 jobs, and approximately 3 seconds away from telling me to go to hell. My breath caught. How did you... Your hands. He glanced down at where my left hand rested in his right. Calluses on your fingertips, probably from writing or typing. Medical textbook spine imprint on your jacket pocket. You've been on your feet for hours, but you're still standing straight because you refuse to show weakness. And you looked at me like you know exactly who I am and aren't impressed. Should I be impressed? The words came out more challenging than I'd intended, but something about him made me want to push back, to see what he'd do. His smile widened, genuine this time. Most people are terrified. Most people are boring. He laughed, an actual laugh that transformed his face from merely handsome to absolutely lethal. Other couples glanced our way, and I realized with a start that we were the center of attention. Sebastian Moretti didn't just command respect, he commanded rooms. What's your name, Bella? His hand on my waist pressed slightly, drawing me infinitesimally closer. Every instinct screamed at me not to tell him, to maintain the anonymity that had kept me safe in his world. But there was something in his eyes. Curiosity mixed with something darker, more intense, that made me reckless. Sophie. Sophie Reed. Sophie. He said it like he was tasting wine, rolling it around to savor the flavor. It suits you. Strong but soft. I'm not soft. No. His gaze traveled over my face with an intensity that made me feel exposed. You're steel wrapped in silk. Dangerous combination. Says the man who just terrified a real estate mogul with 3 words. Richard Castellano is a coward who preys on women he thinks are powerless. Something cold entered Sebastian's expression, turning him from charming to lethal in a heartbeat. He needed to understand that you're not. Because I'm with you? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Because you're you. The orchestra swelled, and he spun me smoothly, pulling me back against him with practiced ease. But the perception of my protection doesn't hurt. In this world, appearance is everything. What world is that exactly? I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear him say it. His smile turned sharp. The one where power matters more than morality, where alliances are built on fear and broken with blood. The world your medical school professors pretend doesn't exist. You mean the criminal underworld. I held his gaze, refusing to look away despite the warning bells clanging in my head. I prefer to think of it as alternative governance. He was teasing now, but there was truth underneath the humor. The law handles some disputes. I handle others. By breaking the law, by operating in the spaces between laws. He leaned closer, breath warm against my ear. But let's not pretend the legitimate world is any less corrupt. At least I'm honest about what I am. I should have been afraid, should have pulled away and run back to my safe, legal, ordinary life. Instead, I found myself intrigued, dangerously intrigued. And what are you, Sebastian Moretti? His name felt strange on my tongue, too intimate, too familiar. Tonight? His hand slid up my spine, leaving heat in its wake. I'm the man who's very interested in why a medical student is serving champagne at a charity gala. Student loans aren't going to pay themselves. There are easier ways to make money. Legal ways? I challenged. I was going to say safer. The song was ending. Couples around us beginning to separate and applaud the orchestra. Serving drinks to men like Castellano is dangerous. So is dancing with men like you. His laugh was low, appreciative. Probably more so. He should have released me, should have let me return to work. Instead, he held my gaze, still swaying slightly even though the music had stopped. Have dinner with me. Absolutely not. Lunch then. Breakfast. Coffee. He was relentless, but his smile suggested he was enjoying my resistance. I'm very flexible. I'm very busy. Everyone's busy. Prioritize me. The sheer arrogance should have been infuriating. Instead, I felt my lips twitch toward a smile. Why would I do that? Because you're curious. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a small touch that sent electricity up my arm. Because you want to know what happens next. Because you're brave enough to find out. Or stupid enough. There's a fine line. Finally, he stepped back, releasing me with obvious reluctance. Think about it, Sophie Reed. You know where to find me. I really don't. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket. Heavy stock. Embossed lettering. Probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. Now you do. I took it automatically, then immediately regretted it. This was exactly how bad decisions started. With a handsome face, a compelling argument, and a business card that felt like a loaded gun. I should get back to work. I needed distance, needed to think without those dark eyes scrambling my brain. You should. But he didn't move, didn't stop watching me like I was the most interesting thing in the room. But you won't call, will you? Definitely not. Liar. He said it softly, almost affectionately. "You'll think about it. About me. About this." He gestured between us, at the space that still felt charged despite the physical distance. "And when you're done pretending you're not interested, you'll call. You're very sure of yourself. I'm very good at reading people." He took one step back, then another, that devastating smile never wavering. "Good night, Sophie. Try not to assault any more real estate moguls tonight. No promises." His laugh followed me as I fled. There was no other word for it, back toward the kitchen. I could feel eyes on me, whispers trailing in my wake. Sebastian Moretti had singled me out, danced with me, given me his private number. In this world, that meant something. I just wasn't sure I wanted to know what. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne flutes and canapés, but my mind was elsewhere, on dark eyes and dangerous smiles, on the weight of a business card burning a hole in my pocket, on the way my heart had raced when he'd touched me, how my body had responded despite every logical reason to run. When I finally made it home to my shoebox apartment at 3 a.m, feet bleeding and exhaustion pulling at every muscle, I pulled out Sebastian's card. Heavy cream stock, simple black lettering, just a name and a phone number. I should throw it away. Should forget the whole insane encounter and focus on my biochemistry exam next week. Instead, I tucked it into my wallet, right behind my driver's license. Just in case. The problem with medical school was that it left very little time for thinking about devastatingly handsome crime lords. Between lectures, lab work, study groups, and my 2 part-time jobs, I barely had time to sleep, let alone obsess over a man I'd spent 20 minutes with at a charity gala. But Sebastian Moretti had gotten under my skin like a splinter, impossible to ignore no matter how much I tried to focus on cellular respiration or the Krebs cycle. His card stayed in my wallet, a constant presence that made me hyper-aware every time I reached for my ID. 3 days after the gala, I was pulling a double shift at Rossi's, a high-end Italian restaurant, where the tips were good and the customers occasionally forgot I was human. My section was mercifully quiet for a Tuesday evening, giving me time to review flashcards between tables. "Sophie." Marco, the host, appeared at my elbow looking nervous. "You've got a 4 top at table 7. VIP treatment." I glanced up from my pathology notes, already calculating how this would affect my study schedule. "Since when do we have VIPs on Tuesdays?" "Since Sebastian Moretti made a reservation." Marco's voice dropped to a whisper. "He specifically requested your section." My stomach dropped. "What?" "The Sebastian Moretti. Owner's already freaking out. Wants everything perfect." Marco was practically vibrating with anxiety. "You know him?" "We've met." I shoved my flashcards into my apron pocket, mind racing. How had he found me? Why had he bothered? And why did part of me feel thrilled instead of terrified? Table 7 was in the corner, private and perfectly positioned to see the entire restaurant. Sebastian sat facing the door. Of course he did. Flanked by 2 men who screamed, "Security," despite their expensive suits. The 4th chair was empty. He looked up as I approached, and that smile appeared. The one that had haunted my dreams for 3 nights straight. "Sophie." What a pleasant surprise. He was lying through his perfect teeth. Nothing about this was a surprise to him. "Mr. Moretti." I kept my voice professional, server-friendly. "Welcome to Rossi's. Can I start you gentlemen with drinks?" "Please, it's Sebastian." He gestured to the empty chair. "Join us." "I'm working. I'll tip well enough to cover your lost wages." He nodded to his companions. "This is Marco, different Marco, and Thomas. They won't bite." The men looked like they bit frequently and enjoyed it, but they nodded politely enough. "I really can't." "You're on break in 10 minutes. Sebastian glanced at his watch, a platinum monstrosity that probably cost more than my entire education. "I checked with your manager. He's very accommodating when properly motivated." Of course he was. I wanted to be angry at the manipulation, the casual display of power that had rearranged my break schedule without asking. Instead, I felt that dangerous curiosity flaring again. 10 minutes, I conceded. Then I have 5 tables to cover. Then I'll order quickly. His eyes sparkled with barely contained amusement. 4 Aperol spritzes, the burrata appetizer, and whatever pasta your chef recommends. I wrote it down mechanically, hyper-aware of his gaze following my every movement. The cacio e pepe is excellent tonight. Perfect. 4 of those as well. When I returned with drinks 8 minutes later, made by a bartender who'd practically genuflected when he heard who they were for, Marco and Thomas had conveniently disappeared, leaving only Sebastian at the table. Your friends left. They're giving us privacy. He pulled out the chair beside him. Sit, Sophie. Please. The please did it. I could have resisted commands or manipulation, but polite requests from a man who probably didn't make them often were harder to ignore. I sat, acutely aware of how close he was, how the subtle scent of his cologne made my head spin. How did you find me? I'm very good at finding things. He took a sip of his Aperol spritz, eyes never leaving mine. People, information, reasons to see you again. That's creepy, not charming. I called the catering company, asked who worked their event Friday night. Your name came up, along with your other employment. He leaned back, completely relaxed despite my obvious discomfort. I could have just called, but I wanted to see you. Why? Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. He said it simply, like it was an undeniable fact rather than a confession. Because you intrigue me, and very few things intrigue me anymore. I'm not a puzzle to solve. No, you're a brilliant woman working herself to exhaustion because the system is broken and medical school is prohibitively expensive. His expression shifted, became more serious. You're someone who deserves better than being pawed at by men like Castellano. I can handle men like Castellano. I know. His smile returned. That's part of what intrigues me. You're fierce, Sophie. You don't back down, even when you probably should. The burrata arrived, interrupting whatever I might have said. The server, Antonio, who'd worked at Rossi's for 15 years, practically bowed as he set down the plate. Eat with me, Sebastian said once we were alone again. You're on break anyway. I shouldn't. Every logical bone in my body said to politely excuse myself and maintain professional distance. But I'd skipped lunch, breakfast had been a protein bar at 6 a.m., and the burrata looked incredible. Fine. I broke off a piece of bread, dragged it through the creamy cheese. The taste exploded on my tongue, rich, decadent, exactly what my depleted system needed. This doesn't mean anything. Of course not. He mirrored my action, and we ate in surprisingly comfortable silence for several moments. Tell me about medical school. Why? Because I want to know everything about you. That's creepy too. I'm sensing a pattern in your feedback. He was laughing at me, but not cruelly. Consider it reconnaissance then. Know your allies, know your enemies. Which are you? I haven't decided yet. He studied me with those sharp eyes. You're defensive, which means you've been hurt before. But you're still here, still fighting, which means you haven't given up. Medical school is notoriously brutal, physically, mentally, emotionally. What keeps you going? The question was more perceptive than I'd expected. I chewed slowly, considering whether to give him a real answer or a convenient lie. My brother. The truth surprised me, slipping out before I could stop it. He died when I was 15. Treatable condition, but we couldn't afford the right care. I watched him suffer because we were poor and the system didn't care. I met Sebastian's gaze, daring him to show pity, So now I'm going to be the doctor who does care, who treats people regardless of their ability to pay. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or respect. Noble goal. Naive goal, according to most of my professors. Naive and noble aren't mutually exclusive. He finished his drink, signaled for another round without breaking eye contact. The world needs more people who haven't learned to compromise their ideals, says the man who runs a criminal empire. I prefer to think of it as a family business with aggressive expansion strategies. The humor was back, deflecting. And I do more for this city than most politicians. By breaking the law, by providing services the law can't or won't. He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. Protection for businesses the police ignore. Justice for victims the courts fail. Order in chaos. That's a convenient rationalization. It's the truth. No smile now, just brutal honesty. I'm not a good man, Sophie. I've done things that would horrify you. But I'm honest about what I am. And I take care of my people. Is that what you want? To take care of me? I couldn't quite keep the sarcasm from my voice. Among other things. His gaze dropped to my lips, lingered, then returned to my eyes. I want to know what makes you laugh. What you dream about besides medicine. Whether you prefer coffee or tea, sunrise or sunset, violence or mercy. That's quite a list. I have time. I don't. I glanced at my watch. My 5-minute break had stretched to 12. I need to get back to work. Have dinner with me. Properly this time, not while you're working. Sebastian, 1 meal. No expectations, no pressure. He pulled out another card. This one with an address handwritten on the back. Friday night. I'll send a car at 7. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no. He stood as I did, towering over me in a way that should have felt threatening, but instead felt protective. Think about it. What's the worst that could happen? I could think of about 50 terrible outcomes, ranging from caught in Mafia crossfire to fall hopelessly for dangerous criminal. But what came out was, I could have a terrible time. His smile could have lit the room. Then I'll have failed spectacularly. But I don't think that's what you're really afraid of. He was right, damn him. I was afraid of having a wonderful time, of wanting more, of falling into his orbit and losing myself in the process. The rest of my shift passed in a haze. Sebastian and his men ate their pasta, left a tip that made my manager practically weep with joy, and disappeared into the night. The card with the address burned in my pocket like a live coal. I made it until Thursday before I caved. Standing in my apartment at midnight, surrounded by anatomy textbooks and the crushing weight of student debt, I pulled out my phone and the card with Sebastian's number. My fingers hovered over the keys. This was stupid. Reckless. Exactly the kind of thing that derailed promising medical careers and ended with newspaper headlines about brilliant student found dead in apparent mob hit. I typed, "This is Sophie. What's the dress code for Friday?" The response came within 30 seconds. "Cocktail attire. I'm very pleased you texted." "Don't be. I'm just confirming details." "Of course. I'll have the car pick you up at 7. I sent him my address, then immediately regretted it. He probably already knew it, had probably known it since the gala, but giving it freely felt like a surrender. "Sophie?" "Yes?" "I'm looking forward to Friday." Despite everything, I smiled at my phone like an idiot. Try not to get arrested before then. No promises. Friday arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. I spent the morning in classes, the afternoon studying, and the evening second-guessing every decision that had led to this moment. My wardrobe was tragically unprepared for cocktail attire. I finally settled on a simple black dress, borrowed from my roommate, who'd demanded full details afterward, and the same 2 small heels from the gala. Hair up or down? Down. Up looked too formal. No, down looked too casual. Up it was. The car arrived at 7 exactly. Not a car. A town car, sleek and black with tinted windows. The driver held the door, professional and polite, and I tried not to feel like Cinderella heading to a very dangerous ball. The address Sebastian had given me was in the historic district, where old money built mansions and new money tried to buy respectability. The car pulled up to a building I recognized, the Nero Club, invitation only, the kind of place where deals were made and secrets were kept. Sebastian waited at the entrance, devastating in a dark suit that probably cost more than my car. His face when he saw me made the borrowed dress and painful heels worth it. Sophie. My name sounded like a prayer. You look incredible. You look dangerous. I am dangerous. He offered his arm, but never to you. I shouldn't have believed him. But as I took his arm and let him lead me inside, past the doorman who nodded with respect, past the elegant bar where beautiful people sipped expensive cocktails, into a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, I wanted to believe him. God help me, I wanted to. The private dining room was something out of a movie. Intimate without being claustrophobic. Elegant without being pretentious. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city lights glittering below like scattered diamonds. A single table sat in the center, set for two with crystal and candles that cast dancing shadows across pristine white linens. This is... I searched for words that weren't either insulting or revealing. Excessive. I wanted privacy. Sebastian pulled out my chair with old-world courtesy. You make me want to impress you, Sophie Reed. It's an unusual feeling. I sat, hyper-aware of his hands on the back of my chair, the heat of him behind me. Do you usually not care what people think? I usually know exactly what people think. He moved to his own chair, fluid and controlled. Fear, respect, calculation. It's predictable. But you? His smile was almost rueful. You're a complete mystery. A server appeared, silent, efficient, with champagne I definitely couldn't afford, and appetizers that looked too pretty to eat. Sebastian must have pre-ordered because the food kept coming, course after course of Italian perfection that made Rossi's look like a drive-through. Tell me something real, I said, after the appetizers disappeared and we were alone again. Not the charming crime lord routine. Something true. He considered this, turning his wine glass slowly. The candlelight caught the amber liquid, made it glow. I hate Thursdays. Of all the things I'd expected, that wasn't it. What? Thursdays. They're my least favorite day. He took a sip of wine, gazed distant. My father was killed on a Thursday. I was 16, came home from school and found him in his study, 3 bullets in his chest, still warm. The air left my lungs. Sebastian, you asked for something real. His attention snapped back to me, sharp and focused. That's the moment I stopped being a boy and became what I am. Thursday afternoon, 4:15 p.m., everything changed. I reached across the table before I could stop myself, my hand covering his. I'm sorry. Don't be. But his fingers turned, caught mine, held on like I was anchoring him. He was a complicated man. Loved his family, loved his city, loved power more than either. I understood him better after I took his place. Is that what you wanted? To follow him into this life? His laugh was bitter. I wanted to be a lawyer. Constitutional law, civil rights, the whole idealistic package. He saw my surprise and smiled without humor. Shocking, right? But when your father is murdered, and your family is vulnerable, and everyone is watching to see if you're weak, wanting doesn't matter anymore. That's awful. That's reality. He released my hand as the next course arrived, risotto that smelled divine. I learned to want what I have, to find satisfaction in power, in control, in protecting what's mine. Is that what tonight is? Acquisition? Tonight is... He paused, seemed to choose his words carefully. An attempt at something I'm not very good at anymore. Honesty, connection, normalcy. There's nothing normal about this. I gestured at the room, the view, the undoubtedly expensive meal. Fair point. That devastating smile returned. But I can't exactly take you to a college bar without causing a scene. Why not? Because 20 people would recognize me, 15 would photograph us, and by morning you'd be labeled as either my latest conquest or under my protection. Your life would change. His expression darkened. I'm trying to give you space to decide if you want that. The honesty startled me. I'd expected seduction, manipulation, the full force of his charm aimed at breaking down my defenses. Instead, he was offering me truth. Complicated, uncomfortable, but real. What if I don't want to decide? The question escaped before I could analyze it. What if I just want to enjoy dinner with an interesting man? Then we'll enjoy dinner. He raised his glass. To suspended judgment and excellent risotto. I clinked my glass against his, felt the crystal sing. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? That more ego, more posturing, more, I'm dangerous, fear me, energy. He laughed, genuinely laughed, the sound rich and warm. I contain multitudes. Besides, that energy is exhausting. I save it for people who require intimidation. And I don't? Sophie, you walked into a charity gala planning to knee a man in the groin and told me, to my face, that dancing with me was dangerous. You're many things, but intimidated isn't one of them. Pride flickered in my chest. My brother always said I had more courage than sense. Tell me about him. Sebastian leaned forward, genuinely interested. Your brother. The grief was old enough now that I could talk about it without breaking. Danny, 2 years older, impossibly annoying my best friend. He wanted to be a teacher. Math teacher specifically because he loved the way numbers made sense when everything else was chaos. What happened? Acute appendicitis. The word still tasted bitter. Treatable, routine, except we didn't have insurance and the hospital wanted payment guarantees before surgery. By the time my mother scraped together enough money, it had ruptured. Peritonitis, sepsis, organ failure. He died 3 days later. Sebastian's jaw tightened. How old? 17. Fuck. The profanity was quiet, but violent. That shouldn't happen. It happens every day. People dying because they're poor, because the system values profit over people. I met his eyes. That's why I'm willing to work myself to exhaustion. Why I'll take any job, any shift. Because no one should watch their brother die for lack of money. You're going to save the world. I'm going to save everyone I can. Something shifted in his expression, admiration mixed with something darker, more possessive. You make me want to be better than I am. I'm not here to fix you. I know. That's part of why I want you. He said it simply. No games. You're not looking at me as a project or a conquest. You're just looking. The main course arrived, giving me time to process that confession. Branzino, perfectly prepared, with vegetables that probably came from some exclusive organic farm. We ate in comfortable silence for several minutes, the city lights glittering below us like we were floating above the world. Can I ask you something? I finally ventured. Anything. What happens after tonight? Sebastian set down his fork, giving the question the weight it deserved. That depends entirely on you. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He reached across the table, not grabbing but offering his hand palm up. An invitation. I'm interested in you, Sophie. More interested than I've been in anyone for years. But I'm also aware that my life is complicated and dangerous, and not conducive to normal relationships. I placed my hand in his, felt his fingers close around mine. What if I don't want normal? Then we'll figure out extraordinary together. His thumb traced circles on my skin, sending electricity up my arm. But I need you to understand what you'd be walking into. My world has rules, and breaking them has consequences. Are you trying to scare me off? I'm trying to be honest. His grip tightened slightly. People close to me become targets. They become leverage. If we do this, whatever this becomes, you'll be in danger simply by association. I'm already in danger. I live in a city where men like Castellano think they can grab whoever they want, where student debt is crippling and healthcare is a privilege. I leaned forward. At least your kind of danger is honest about what it is. His smile was sharp as broken glass. You're rationalizing. I'm being practical. You're being reckless. Says the crime lord taking me to dinner. He laughed, and the tension broke like a fever. Fair point. We're both clearly insane. Dessert appeared, tiramisu and espresso, and the conversation drifted to safer topics. He asked about my classes. I asked about his legitimate businesses. We debated Italian cinema, argued about coffee preparation, discovered a shared obsession with old mystery novels. It was easy, dangerously easy. By the time the meal ended and he walked me back to the waiting car, I'd forgotten to be cautious. Forgotten that this man was dangerous, that being near him came with consequences. Thank you for tonight. I turned to face him at the car, aware of the driver discreetly looking away. It was unexpected. Good unexpected? The best kind. He stepped closer, and my breath caught. This close, I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from him. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to retreat, and cupped my jaw. I want to kiss you. His voice was rough, barely controlled. But I need you to want it too. My heart thundered against my ribs. Every logical thought screamed at me to step back, to maintain distance, to not cross this line, but logic had never felt further away. Sophie. My name was a question, a plea. I answered by closing the distance between us. His lips met mine with surprising gentleness. No conquest, no domination, just careful exploration. He tasted like espresso and dark chocolate and something uniquely him that made my head spin. One hand stayed on my jaw while the other found my waist, pulling me closer but never demanding. I melted into him, hands fisting in his jacket, all my carefully constructed walls crumbling. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, and I heard myself make a sound that should have been embarrassing, but just made him hold me tighter. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Christ, Sophie. That was a mistake? His voice held an edge of vulnerability. Inevitable. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. And probably a mistake, but inevitable nonetheless. His smile could have powered the city. I can work with inevitable. The car ride home passed in a blur. Sebastian didn't join me. I have business, he'd said, which probably meant something illegal, but his goodnight text arrived before I'd even made it upstairs. I haven't stopped thinking about kissing you. I smiled at my phone like a teenager. That's inconvenient for your criminal activities. Extremely. You're a terrible influence, says the man who runs the mob. Family business, not mob. We prefer organized traditionalists. I laughed out loud, earning a strange look from my roommate who was camped on the couch with a textbook. Good date? Rachel asked, eyebrows raised. Complicated date. The good ones usually are. She returned to her studying, but I caught her smile. I fell asleep with my phone in my hand, Sebastian's last text glowing in the darkness. Sweet dreams, beautiful. Try not to save too many lives tomorrow. Leave some for me to protect. It should have been cheesy. Instead, it felt like a promise. I was in so much trouble. The following week established a pattern I knew I should break but couldn't quite manage. Sebastian texted daily, sometimes funny, sometimes serious, always perfectly timed to brighten whatever disaster I was navigating. Medical school was relentless, my job's exhausting, but his messages became something to look forward to. Wednesday brought flowers to the hospital where I was doing clinical rotations. Nothing ostentatious, just a simple bouquet of sunflowers with a card that read, "Because you mentioned loving them once. Because I pay attention." S. The nurses lost their minds. Dr. Patterson, my attending, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I tried to ignore the knowing looks and failed spectacularly. Thursday he showed up at Rossi's again, this time with Marco and Thomas and 2 women who introduced themselves as his cousins. They were lovely, welcoming, and clearly vetting me. I tried not to feel like I was being interviewed while serving them carbonara. "He talks about you constantly," one of them, Gianna, confided when I brought their dessert. "It's annoying. I'm sure he doesn't. Every family dinner. Sophie said this. Sophie thinks that. He's insufferable." But she was smiling, affectionate. "We approve, for what it's worth." "There's nothing to approve. We've had one date." "One date where he kissed you so thoroughly you forgot your own name, if his dopey expression is any indication." She grinned at my expression. "He's my cousin. I can tell." By Friday, I'd convinced myself I needed to establish boundaries. Sebastian was consuming too much mental real estate, distracting me from school and work and everything that actually mattered. Then my student loan payment bounced. I stared at the email in horror, calculating and recalculating numbers that refused to work. I'd been so careful, had budgeted down to the dollar, but an unexpected textbook expense and a slow week at Rossi's had thrown everything off. The penalty fees would cascade into other bills. I'd be behind for months, maybe have to defer a semester, lose my clinical placement. My phone rang. "Sebastian." "Hey," I answered, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "What's wrong?" He heard it anyway. "Nothing. Just student stuff." "Sophie." His voice went firm. "What's wrong?" And somehow the whole story spilled out. The bounced payment, the cascade of problems, the very real possibility of having to delay my education. I didn't mean to tell him, didn't want to seem like I was asking for help. But he listened, silent and attentive, until I ran out of words. "How much?" he asked when I finished. "Sebastian, no." "How much do you need?" "I'm not asking you for money." "I know. I'm offering." His tone left no room for argument. "How much, Sophie?" 5,000 would cover the immediate problem. 10 would give me breathing room. I hated how my voice cracked. "But I can't." "Yes, you can. It's already done." "What?" "I'm transferring 15,000 to your account. It should clear within the hour." My heart stopped. "Sebastian, absolutely not. I can't accept." "Consider it an investment in the city's medical future. You're going to be an incredible doctor, and I'm ensuring you get there." "That's not... People will think... I don't want anyone thinking I'm with you for your money." His laugh was bitter. "Trust me, no one who knows you would think that. You've turned down every advantage I could offer. You work yourself to exhaustion rather than accept help. This isn't about money, Sophie. It's about removing an obstacle so you can focus on what matters. I'll pay you back, if you must." He sounded amused. "But only after you've finished school and started your practice. I'm a patient man." Tears burned behind my eyes, relief, gratitude, and something more complicated. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you matter to me." Simple, direct, Devastating. Because watching you struggle when I have resources to help is physically painful. Because I want to see you succeed, and I'm in a position to ensure that happens. This changes things between us. Does it? He paused. You were already in my orbit, Sophie. Already someone I care about protecting. The money just makes your life easier. It doesn't obligate you to anything. But it did. We both knew it did. Money was power, and accepting it shifted the dynamic between us in ways I couldn't fully process. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. Seriously, Sebastian, thank you. You're welcome, Bella. I could hear his smile. Now go ace whatever exam you have tomorrow and stop worrying about money. I've got that covered. After we hung up, I checked my account. $15,000, cleared and waiting. More money than I'd ever had at once. I should have felt relieved, should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt trapped, like I'd crossed a line I could never uncross, accepted a gift that came with invisible strings. But when my landlord called about next month's rent, and I could pay it without panic, those strings started feeling more like safety nets. Maybe that's how it always started. One compromise at a time, until you looked up and realized you'd traded your independence for security. Or maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe Sebastian really was just helping. No ulterior motives, no hidden agenda. The problem was, I'd never been very good at self-deception. And I was starting to realize that when it came to Sebastian Moretti, I was willing to deceive myself about quite a lot. The money sat in my account like a ticking bomb for 3 days before I used any of it. Not because I didn't need it. My student loan company was sending increasingly threatening emails. But because accepting it felt like stepping off a cliff into water I couldn't see the bottom of. You're being ridiculous, Rachel declared on Sunday morning, watching me stare at my laptop screen for the 100th time. He gave you money with no strings attached. Pay your bills and move on. There are always strings. Maybe with normal people, but this guy runs a criminal empire. If he wanted something from you, he'd just take it. She paused. Actually, that's terrifying. Forget I said that. But she had a point. Sebastian had numerous ways to manipulate or control me if that's what he wanted. The money felt more like care, which was somehow more terrifying than coercion. I paid my student loans, covered rent for 3 months, bought the medical textbooks I'd been putting off, put the rest in savings for the inevitable next crisis. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time since starting medical school, I could breathe without calculating how many shifts I needed to cover basic expenses. My phone buzzed. You paid your loans. Good. I stared at the text, something cold slithering down my spine. How do you know that? I may have asked my accountant to confirm the transfer went through properly. That's invasive. That's thorough. I wanted to make sure you actually used it. I should have been angry, should have felt violated. Instead, I felt seen. Like he understood that I would torment myself with guilt, rather than accept help. So he'd check to ensure I did. Thank you. Again. I know I keep saying it. But, thank you. Stop thanking me. Come to dinner Thursday. My place this time. Your place? Don't worry. Marco and Thomas will be there. Fully chaperoned. I'm making dinner. You cook? I contain multitudes, remember? Say yes. I should have said no. Should have established boundaries, maintained distance. Instead, what time? 7. I'll send the address. Thursday found me standing outside a brownstone in the historic district, second-guessing every life choice that had led to this moment. The building was elegant. Old money elegant. The kind that whispered, rather than shouted wealth. Sebastian answered the door himself, wearing jeans and a Henley that should have made him look casual, but instead made him look dangerously touchable. Sophie, come in. The interior was stunning. Exposed brick, Modern furniture that somehow complemented the historical architecture, art that looked suspiciously like actual museum pieces. But it also felt lived in. Books stacked on tables, a sweater thrown over a chair, photographs of people who must be family. "This is beautiful," I said honestly. "It's home." He led me toward the kitchen, where something smelled incredible. I bought it after my father died, needed space that was mine, not weighted with his memory. Marco and Thomas were already there, chopping vegetables with surprising competence. They greeted me warmly, and I realized with a start that these terrifying men had become familiar, comfortable. "What are we making?" I asked, drawn toward the kitchen despite myself. "Ossobuco, my grandmother's recipe." Sebastian handed me a glass of wine. "She taught me to cook when I was 12. Said a man who couldn't feed himself wasn't really a man. Smart woman, terrifying woman." His smile was fond. She ran the family before my father, made him look soft by comparison. I watched him move around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, directing Marco and Thomas, adjusting seasonings, tasting sauces. This version of Sebastian, relaxed, domestic, laughing at his cousin's terrible jokes, felt more dangerous than the crime lord who'd faced down Castellano. Because this Sebastian was someone I could fall for. "Need help?" I offered, setting down my wine. "Can you dice tomatoes?" We fell into an easy rhythm, cooking together like we'd done it 100 times. Marco told inappropriate stories that made Thomas groan. Sebastian corrected my knife technique with gentle hands on mine. The kitchen filled with laughter and the rich scent of braised meat. It felt like family. Dinner was served at a massive table that could have seated 12, but currently held 4. The food was extraordinary, the wine better, the conversation easy and warm. Marco and Thomas treated me like I belonged, not like an outsider being vetted. "So, Sophie," Marco said over dessert, panna cotta that melted on the tongue. "What are your intentions toward our cousin?" "Marco," Sebastian's voice held warning. "What?" "It's a fair question. You're mooning around like a lovesick teenager. We need to know if she's serious." I should have been offended. Instead, I appreciated the directness. "I don't know yet. This," I gestured between Sebastian and myself, "is complicated." "Because he's a crime lord?" Thomas asked mildly. "Because I'm trying to build a legitimate career, and being associated with organized crime could destroy that before it starts." Sebastian's expression shuddered. "That's fair." "But," I continued, meeting his eyes, "I also think he's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And walking away from interesting is a mistake I'm not sure I want to make." The smile that crossed his face could have powered the sun. After dinner, Marco and Thomas made themselves scarce with obvious excuses about urgent business. Sebastian poured us both more wine and led me to the living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city lights. "Your cousins are subtle," I observed. "They're really not." He sat beside me on the leather couch, close but not crowding. "But they mean well. They care about you." Family is everything in my world. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. It's the only thing that matters, really. Power, money, territory, those are tools. Family is the purpose. "Tell me about them, your family." So he did, about his grandmother who'd terrorized the city with iron will and sharp intelligence. His father who'd tried to balance tradition with progress and died for it. Marco and Thomas and Gianna and a dozen other cousins, uncles, aunts, a sprawling network of people bound by blood and loyalty. "You love them," I said softly. "More than anything." He turned to face me fully. "Which is why I need you to understand the risk. People know that family is my weakness. They'd use you to get to me. I can take care of myself." "I know, but I'm asking you not to have to." His free hand came up, cupped my jaw with devastating tenderness. Let me protect you, Sophie. Not because you need it, but because it would kill me if something happened to you because of me. That's a lot of pressure. That's honesty. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. I'm trying to be smart about this, to give you outs, to make sure you understand what you're walking into. But the truth is, I'm already in too deep. I care about you, and in my world, that makes you a target. What if I don't care about being a target? Then you're braver than I am. He leaned closer, breath warm against my lips. Or crazier. Both, probably. He kissed me then, slow and deep and perfect. Not the hungry desperation of our first kiss, but something more profound. Like a promise, like a confession, like a question that only I could answer. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. Stay tonight. My heart stuttered. Sebastian, not like that. I mean, stay for a movie, for conversation, fall asleep on my couch if you want. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. I'm not ready for you to leave yet. The vulnerability in that admission undid me. This powerful, dangerous man who controlled half the city was asking me to stay like I was the one with power. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. We ended up watching old noir films on his ridiculously comfortable couch, me tucked against his side like I belonged there. He explained the cinematography. I mocked the dialogue, and somewhere around 2 a.m. I fell asleep with his arm around me and his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows, and Sebastian's jacket draped over me like a blanket. He was in the kitchen, making coffee, wearing the same clothes from last night. Did you sleep? I asked, voice rough from sleep. I had business calls. He turned, and the smile that crossed his face when he saw me rumpled and confused in his living room was worth every complication. Coffee? Please. I stretched, tried to finger-comb my hair into something presentable. What time is it? 7. I figured I'd let you sleep until you had to leave for class. He handed me a perfect cappuccino. Your 8 a.m. is pathophysiology, right? I blinked. How do you know my schedule? I pay attention. He sat beside me, his own espresso in hand. You mentioned it Tuesday. Said you were dreading the exam. He was right. I had mentioned it. But the fact that he'd remembered, had adjusted his morning to accommodate my schedule, felt significant. I should go. I didn't move. You should. He didn't move either. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee as the city woke up around us. It felt domestic, settled, like something we'd been doing for years rather than weeks. Sophie? His voice was serious. Yeah? I know this is complicated. I know you have a million reasons to walk away, but I need you to know. He set down his cup, turned to face me fully. I'm all in. Whatever this becomes, however you want to do this, I'm here. No pressure, no expectations. Just here. My chest felt too tight. That's terrifying. I know. His smile was crooked, almost shy. But true nonetheless. I should have been logical. Should have listed all the reasons this couldn't work. His criminal empire, my legitimate career, the danger, the complications, the sheer impossibility of merging our worlds. Instead, I leaned over and kissed him. Soft, brief, but full of everything I couldn't say. I'm not walking away, I said against his lips. I'm probably going to regret that, but I'm not walking away. His arms came around me, holding tight like I might disappear. Good, because I have no idea what I'd do if you did. I made it to class with 3 minutes to spare, still wearing yesterday's clothes and what had to be an obvious post-makeout glow. Rachel took one look at me and burst out laughing. You stayed over. On his couch, fully clothed, very innocent. Right, and I'm the Queen of England. She linked her arm through mine as we headed to our seats. So, are you official now? I don't know what we are. But you know you're something. Yeah, I couldn't stop smiling. We're definitely something. The something became increasingly difficult to define over the next few weeks. Sebastian integrated into my life with surprising ease, showing up at the hospital with lunch when I worked late, texting encouragement before exams, sending cars to drive me home when weather was bad. He never pushed for more than I was willing to give, never demanded time I didn't have, just made himself available, constant and steady, until I couldn't imagine my days without him in them. This is dangerous, I told him one night at his place, curled up in his bed after falling asleep during a movie. We still hadn't slept together, not really slept together, but the line was getting blurrier. What is? His fingers traced patterns on my arm. This. Us. How comfortable I'm getting with you. Why is that dangerous? Because I'm starting to need you. I turned to face him in the darkness, and I swore I'd never need anyone. Needing someone isn't weakness, Bella. His hand cupped my face. It's trust, and trust is the bravest thing you can offer. Even when the person you trust is a criminal? Especially then. He kissed my forehead. Because you know exactly what I am and choose me anyway. He was right, and that terrified me. I knew what Sebastian was, knew the darkness he was capable of, the violence his world demanded. But I also knew his loyalty, his fierce protectiveness, the way he loved his family with everything he had. And I was starting to realize he might love me the same way. The thought should have sent me running. Instead, it made me burrow closer, breathing in his scent, letting myself trust that maybe, just maybe, this impossible thing could work. I was either the bravest woman alive or the stupidest. Probably both. But as Sebastian's arms tightened around me and his breath evened into sleep, I couldn't bring myself to regret a single choice that had led me here, even if I should. The thing about falling for someone in the criminal underworld is that violence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't send invitations or RSVPs. It just shows up, uninvited and bloody, and reminds you that choosing this life means accepting its darkest parts. I learned that lesson 3 weeks after spending the night at Sebastian's place. Really spending the night. Crossing that final line we'd been dancing around since the first kiss. I was leaving the hospital after a grueling 12-hour shift, when Marco appeared at my car, expression grim in a way that made my stomach drop. Sophie, I need you to come with me. What happened? My medical training kicked in before panic could. Is someone hurt? Sebastian's fine, but we need to get you somewhere safe. His hand was on my elbow, firm, but not rough. There's been a situation. The car ride to Sebastian's brownstone took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Marco wouldn't elaborate beyond, wait for Sebastian, which meant it was bad, really bad. Sebastian met me at the door, and relief crashed through me so violently I nearly stumbled. He was intact, unmarked, no visible injuries, but his expression was pure murder. What happened? I demanded, letting him pull me inside. Castellano happened. His voice was ice. He came after you. The floor seemed to tilt. What? Sebastian led me to the living room, sat me on the couch with careful hands that contradicted his violent expression. One of his men followed you from the hospital tonight. Marco intercepted him before he could approach you, but the message was clear. What message? That you're not under my protection, that you're fair game. His jaw clenched hard enough to hurt. He's trying to force my hand, to make me choose between your safety and starting a war. What does that mean? But I knew, had known since the first night that Sebastian's world operated on different rules, where women became pawns and violence was negotiation. It means I need to eliminate the threat, Sebastian crouched in front of me, hands on my knees. And I need you to let me. Eliminate? The euphemism was clear. You mean kill him. I mean remove him from the board in whatever way ensures he can never touch you. His eyes bored into mine, dark and absolutely certain. I won't apologize for that, Sophie. This is what protecting you looks like in my world. I should have been horrified, should have run screaming from the man calmly discussing murder like it was a business decision. Instead, I found myself asking, will it start a war? Possibly. His honesty was brutal. Castellano has alliances, connections. Taking him out will have consequences. Then don't. The words came out stronger than I felt. Don't start a war because of me. Sophie? I mean it, Sebastian. I'm not worth people dying over. My hands covered his, squeezing tight. There has to be another way. There isn't. His voice was flat, final. He threatened you. In my world, that has one response. Your world is insane. Yes, he didn't deny it. But it's my world, and you're in it now. That means I protect you with everything I have. Even if it costs lives? Even then. He stood, began pacing like a caged predator. You need to understand something, Bella. I've built my entire empire on reputation and respect. If people think they can threaten what's mine without consequences, everything crumbles. The peace I've maintained, the order, it all falls apart. So, I'm a symbol? Anger sparked in my chest. A pawn in your power games? You're the woman I love. The words dropped like bombs, stopping my tirade cold. And I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you. My heart stopped, started, raced. You love me? Of course I love you. He said it like it was obvious, like I should have known all along. I've been in love with you since you threatened to knee a real estate mogul in the groin while holding a champagne tray. You're fierce and brilliant and completely impossible. And I love every infuriating part of you. Tears burned behind my eyes. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. He returned to me, cupped my face with hands that had probably killed but held me like I was made of glass. But it's true. I love you, Sophie Reed. And I'm not letting some piece of shit take you from me. Sebastian. No. His forehead pressed to mine. I need you to trust me. Trust that I know how to handle this, how to protect both you and my family. Let me do what I'm good at. Killing people? It should have been accusatory. Instead, it just sounded tired. Solving problems. His lips brushed my temple, with violence when necessary, diplomacy when possible, but always keeping you safe. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. If you do this, if you kill Castellano, I need to know. No secrets, no protection from the ugly parts. If I'm in this world, I'm in it completely. Something flickered across his face, surprise maybe, or respect. You're sure? No, but I'm done pretending you're something you're not. I took a shaky breath. I love you too, you terrifying criminal, and if that means accepting the violence, then I accept it. But no more protecting me from truth. His kiss was desperate, claiming, full of relief and love and promises neither of us could keep. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine, breathing hard. I love you, he repeated. God, Sophie, I love you so much it terrifies me. Good. I managed a watery laugh. Because I'm absolutely terrified too. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in criminal diplomacy. Sebastian moved like a chess master, calling in favors, making deals, applying pressure in places I couldn't see. Marco and Thomas became my constant shadows, polite but immovable, ensuring I was never alone or vulnerable. I went to class, to clinicals, to work, with armed guards trailing at a discreet distance. My professors pretended not to notice. My colleagues whispered but didn't ask. Everyone understood that being under Sebastian Moretti's protection meant not asking questions. On the third night, Sebastian came home covered in blood that wasn't his. I was in his kitchen making tea, because I'd somehow acquired keys to his place and spent more nights here than my own apartment, when he walked through the door. His suit was ruined, his knuckles split, and his eyes held the kind of coldness that made lesser men flee. "Is he dead?" I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. "No." Sebastian stripped off his jacket, tossed it in what I was learning was the evidence disposal pile. But he wishes he was. "What happened?" I paid him a visit, made it clear that touching you, even thinking about touching you, would result in consequences he couldn't survive. He moved to the sink, began washing blood from his hands with practiced efficiency. He's leaving the city, tonight, with a permanent understanding that this territory is closed to him. You let him live. You asked me not to start a war. He turned to face me, water still dripping from his hands. So I found another way. One that preserves my reputation while honoring your request. I crossed the distance between us, took his damaged hands in mine. Thank you. Don't thank me for violence, Sophie. I'm thanking you for hearing me, for compromising when you didn't have to. I grabbed the first aid kit, another permanent fixture now, and began cleaning his knuckles, and for coming home to me. His other hand tilted my chin up. Always. I'll always come home to you. We stood in his kitchen, me patching his wounds while he watched with an expression so soft it made my chest ache, and I realized this was my life now. This strange balance of medical school and criminal protection, studying for exams and watching the man I loved wash blood from his hands. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was somehow exactly right. "Stay," he said quietly. "Not just tonight. Move in. Make this your home too." "Sebastian." "I know it's fast. I know you need your independence." His thumb brushed across my lips. "But I sleep better when you're here. Think better. Breathe easier. And I'm selfish enough to want that permanently. My lease is up next month. Convenient timing. This is crazy." But I was smiling, had been smiling since he asked. Crazy seems to be our specialty. He pulled me closer, mindful of his injured hands. "Is that a yes?" "It's a, I'll think about it." I stood on my toes, kissed him softly. "But yes. Obviously yes." His smile could have powered the sun. "I'll have Marco move your things next week." Presumptuous. Efficient. He kissed me again, deeper, and accurate. Moving in together changed things, made the relationship undeniably real in ways that terrified and thrilled me. I integrated into Sebastian's life completely, meeting more family members, attending dinners where criminal business was discussed over pasta, becoming someone they protected instinctively. Medical school continued its relentless pace, but with Sebastian's financial support, I could focus on studying instead of juggling 3 jobs. My grades improved, my stress decreased. My professors noticed, approved, started discussing residency programs I'd only dreamed of. "You're doing it," Rachel said one afternoon between classes. "Becoming the doctor you always wanted to be." "With mob money," I reminded her. "With support." She squeezed my hand. "Stop punishing yourself for accepting help. You're brilliant, Sophie. You were always going to make it." Sebastian just made the journey less agonizing. She was right, but the guilt lingered. Until Sebastian caught me staring at financial aid applications one night and physically removed my laptop. "Stop," he said firmly. "You earned your place in medical school. The money just means you get to focus on learning instead of survival. It feels like cheating. It's privilege, which you deserve but didn't have until now. He pulled me into his lap, wrapped his arms around me. Let me give you this, Sophie. Let me make your life easier in the ways I can. You've given me too much already. Impossible. His lips found my neck. I'd give you the world if you asked. I don't want the world. I turned in his arms, straddled his lap, watched his eyes darken. I just want you. You have me. His hand slid up my thighs. Every dangerous criminal part of me. Yours. We made love on the couch, then again in bed, and I fell asleep thinking that maybe accepting help wasn't weakness. Maybe it was trust. Maybe love meant letting someone carry you when you'd been carrying yourself for too long. 3 months of domestic bliss shattered on a Tuesday morning when I was leaving for clinical rotations. The explosion destroyed my car. I wasn't in it. Sebastian had insisted I wait inside while Marco pulled the vehicle around, a precaution he'd started implementing after the Castellano incident. But the fireball that consumed my Honda Civic in the driveway made my ears ring and my knees buckle. Sebastian was on me instantly, covering my body with his, shielding me from debris. When the smoke cleared, he was already on his phone, barking orders in Italian while Marco and Thomas secured the perimeter with guns I'd known they carried, but never seen drawn. Inside. Now. Sebastian's voice left no room for argument. The next few hours were chaos. Police, firefighters, federal agents who looked at Sebastian with barely concealed hostility. A bomb squad examined the wreckage. Someone, enemy or rival, or just collateral damage, had tried to kill me, or kill Sebastian through me. Castellano? I asked when we were finally alone, safe in his reinforced study, while guards patrolled every entrance. Unlikely. He's too smart to break our agreement. Sebastian was on his third whiskey, hands shaking slightly, the only sign of how close he'd come to losing me. This is someone else, someone sending a message. What message? That I'm vulnerable, that loving you makes me weak. He drained his glass, poured another. They're not wrong. Sebastian, you should leave. The words came out broken. Go somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach you. I'll give you money, new identity, whatever you need. No. Sophie, they tried to kill you. They tried to kill us. I moved to him, took the glass from his hand, forced him to look at me. And I'm not leaving. We deal with this together or not at all. You could die. So could you. Every single day. I cupped his face, felt the tension thrumming through him. I chose this life knowing the risks. I'm not running at the first sign of danger. This isn't danger. This is war. Then we fight. I kissed him hard, pouring every ounce of conviction into it. Together, you and me and your scary cousins, we find whoever did this, and we end the threat. You're insane. I'm in love with you. Same thing. I pulled back, met his eyes. I trust you to protect me. Do you trust me to be strong enough to stay? His arms came around me, crushing me against his chest. I trust you. God help me. I trust you with everything. Then stop trying to send me away and start figuring out who wants us dead. His laugh was slightly unhinged. How did I fall in love with the most stubborn woman in the city? You have excellent taste, I suggested. Terrible taste. The absolute worst. But he was smiling now, that dangerous edge returning to his expression. Okay, we do this together, but you follow security protocols without argument. Deal. And if I say run, you run. Not happening. Sophie. Together, Sebastian. All of it. Or not at all. He searched my face, looking for cracks in my resolve. When he found none, he kissed me like I was air, and he was drowning. Together, he agreed against my lips. Even if it kills me. It won't. I tried to sound more confident than I felt. Because we're smarter than whoever's coming for us. I hoped I was right. Because somewhere out there, someone had declared war on the most dangerous man in the city. And they'd made the fatal mistake of thinking that targeting me would make him weak. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The war room, because that's what Sebastian's study had become, hummed with controlled chaos. Maps covered every surface, photographs pinned to boards, faces of potential enemies circled and crossed out as intelligence filtered in. Marco coordinated with various lieutenants via encrypted phones. Thomas ran background checks on anyone who'd shown interest in Sebastian's operations recently. Gianna monitored social media and news outlets for unusual patterns. And I studied, because finals waited for no one, not even for car bombs and assassination attempts. "This is surreal," I muttered, highlighting a passage about cardiac pathology while Sebastian discussed tactical responses to potential threats 3 feet away. "Welcome to my world, Bella." He didn't look up from the reports he was reviewing. "How's studying going?" "Great if the exam includes questions about surviving explosions and identifying criminal rivals." I closed my textbook with more force than necessary. "Sebastian, I can't concentrate like this." He glanced up, saw my frustration, and made a decision. "Everyone out. Take 30 minutes. The room emptied within seconds, leaving us alone with the maps and the tension. "Talk to me," he said, moving around the desk to sit beside me on the couch. "What do you need? I need to understand why someone hates you enough to blow up my car." I turned to face him fully. "You said you maintain peace, that you're careful about conflicts. So who did you piss off enough to warrant this?" His jaw tightened. I've been asking myself the same question. And 3 possibilities. He pulled over a file, opened it to reveal photographs. First, the Volkov family. Russian syndicate trying to expand into my territory. I shut them down 6 months ago. Firmly, but not violently. Could be retaliation. I studied the images. Hard men with harder eyes. What's the likelihood? 30%. The Volkovs prefer direct confrontation. Bombs are messy, attract attention they don't want. Second option? Antonio Russo, former lieutenant who thought he deserved my position. Sebastian's expression darkened. I exiled him rather than killing him. Mercy I'm now regretting. He has motivation and means. Percentage? 40. His ego was always his weakness. Coming after you would be his style. Hurt me where I'm vulnerable. And the third? Sebastian hesitated, which immediately raised my alarm. Richard Castellano. I thought you had an agreement. We do. But agreements only work if both parties honor them. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I may have been more thorough in my warning than I initially told you. My stomach dropped. How thorough? He may have lost several fingers and his ability to have children. Sebastian's voice was flat, unapologetic. He came after you. I made sure he understood the consequences. Jesus, Sebastian. Don't! His eyes snapped to mine, hard and uncompromising. Don't look at me like I'm a monster for protecting you. He would have done worse, would have hurt you in ways that... He cut himself off, jaw clenched. I took a breath, processed, remembered who I'd fallen in love with. Okay, so Castellano had motivation for revenge. 30% probability, but if it's him, he's working through proxies. His allies have gone quiet since the incident. So we have 3 enemies and no proof. I rubbed my temples, trying to think logically while my heart raced. What's the plan? I'm pressuring all 3 simultaneously, making it clear that whoever tried to kill you just signed their death warrant. His hand found mine, squeezed. But I need you somewhere safe while I work. We've had this argument. I'm staying. Sophie. No. I stood, began pacing. You want me safe? Fine. But hiding me away doesn't solve the problem. Whoever did this needs to believe they failed completely, that I'm not scared, not running, not giving them satisfaction. Sebastian watched me with an expression I couldn't read. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we make a statement. The idea formed as I spoke. Your family has that charity gala next week, right? The annual fundraiser? Yes. But there's no way I'm bringing you to. That's exactly where you bring me. I turned to face him fully. You parade me around like nothing happened. Show everyone that their attempt failed, that we're stronger than ever. Make them desperate. Desperate enemies make mistakes, he finished slowly. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You want to draw them out. I want them to know they failed. And I want to stand beside you publicly, so everyone understands that I'm not a weakness. I'm a partner. You'll have a target on your back. I already do. At least this way I'm controlling the narrative. I moved to him, straddled his lap, forced him to look at me. I'm not fragile, Sebastian. I'm smart and capable and tired of being treated like something that needs protecting in a locked room. His hands gripped my hips, probably harder than he intended. If anything happens to you, it won't, because you're the best at what you do, and what you do is keep people safe. I kissed him softly. Trust me. Trust us. I trust you. He pulled me closer, buried his face in my neck. I'm just terrified of losing you. Then let's make sure that doesn't happen. The gala preparations consumed the next week. Sebastian assigned additional security, discreet but thorough. I received combat training from Thomas, who taught me defensive maneuvers and where to strike for maximum damage. Marco ran me through evacuation protocols until I could navigate the venue blindfolded. And I studied, because my cardiology final waited for no one, not even strategic bait operations. You're insane, Rachel declared when I told her the plan. Completely, certifiably insane. Probably, I highlighted another passage. But I'm tired of hiding. You're not hiding. You're being sensibly cautious about people who want you dead. Same thing. I closed my textbook, met her worried gaze. I need to do this, Rach. Need to prove I'm not just Sebastian's weakness. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know. She grabbed my hand. But strength isn't the same as invincibility. Please be careful. I will. I have a crime lord and his entire family making sure of it. The night of the gala arrived with crystalline clarity, the kind of perfect evening that made me nervous because it felt like the calm before violence. My dress was stunning. Deep red, designer, chosen specifically to make a statement. Sebastian had sent a security detail to escort me from his brownstone to the venue. He met me at the entrance, devastating in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my first semester of medical school. But it was the expression on his face when he saw me that made my breath catch, possessive and proud and fiercely loving. You look incredible, he said, offering his arm. You look worried. I am worried. But also... He leaned close, lips brushing my ear. Incredibly turned on by how brave you are. Hold that thought for later. Planning on it. We entered together, and I felt the room's attention swing our way like a spotlight. Whispers followed us. Speculation, curiosity, calculation. Everyone here knew about the car bomb. Everyone wondered how we'd respond. Sebastian made the answer clear by keeping me close, introducing me to everyone who mattered, treating me like an equal partner rather than protected property. His family surrounded us, Gianna resplendent in sapphire silk, Marco and Thomas in matching suits. A dozen cousins and associates forming a subtle but unmistakable protective circle. You're making a statement, I observed quietly between introductions. We're making a statement, he corrected, hand warm and steady on my back. that you're family now, that attacking you means declaring war on all of us. 2 hours into the evening, I spotted him. Antonio Russo, former lieutenant turned exile, lurking near the bar with eyes full of rage and recognition. He saw me notice him, and his smile was sharp as broken glass. "Sebastian," I said quietly. "I see him." Sebastian's voice went cold. "Stay close. Marco, Thomas, with me." But as we moved toward Russo, the lights went out. Panic erupted immediately. Screams, crashes, the chaos of 100 people plunged into darkness. I felt Sebastian's hand tighten on mine, heard him shouting orders in Italian. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in eerie red. And then I saw them. 4 men, moving through the crowd with purpose. One headed for Sebastian. The other 3 were coming for me. Training kicked in before thought. I grabbed a champagne bottle from a nearby table, absurd weapon but all I had, and swung it at the first man's head. Glass shattered. He staggered. Marco appeared from nowhere, gun drawn, putting the man down with brutal efficiency. The second attacker grabbed my arm. I remembered Thomas's lessons. Elbow to the face, knee to the groin. Don't think. Just move. He released me with a howl. Thomas finished him. The third was smarter, or more desperate. He caught me around the waist, knife appearing from somewhere, blade pressing against my ribs. "Move and she dies," he shouted. Everything stopped. Sebastian froze mid-fight, the man he'd been systematically destroying forgotten. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. "Let her go." Sebastian's voice was death itself. "Let her go, and I'll make it quick." "You'll let me walk out of here," the man demanded, "or I gut her right now." I felt the knife point pressing harder, breaking skin. Felt warm blood trickling down my side. Saw Sebastian's face transform into something barely human. And I made a decision. I stopped fighting, went completely limp. The sudden dead weight made my captor stumble, knife shifting away from vital organs. In that split second, I drove my head backward into his nose with every ounce of force I had. He screamed. The knife clattered away, and Sebastian was on him. What happened next was brutal and efficient and over in seconds. By the time Marco pulled Sebastian off, the man was unconscious and possibly dead. Sebastian's knuckles were bloody, his tuxedo ruined, his eyes wild. "Sophie." He was on me immediately, hands running over my body checking for injuries. "Jesus Christ, Sophie, you're bleeding." "I'm fine. It's shallow." I let him examine the knife wound, which was already clotting. "We need to secure Russo." "Fuck Russo. You're hurt. And you're bleeding from your eyebrow. We can compare injuries later." I grabbed his face, made him focus. "Sebastian, where's Russo?" Reality snapped back. Sebastian's expression shifted from panicked lover to tactical crime lord in an instant. "Marco, find Russo, now." But Russo was gone, fled during the chaos, leaving his hired guns behind. The ones who survived, 2, barely, would provide information. Eventually. Police arrived within 10 minutes, by which time Sebastian's lawyers and legitimate connections had already crafted a narrative about hired security confronting armed intruders at a charity event. The knife wound became evidence of an attempted robbery. The violence became necessary defense. I gave my statement from the ambulance where EMTs fussed over what amounted to a deep scratch. Sebastian refused to leave my side, hand gripping mine like I might disappear. "You stopped fighting," he said quietly, while the EMT bandaged my ribs. "Made yourself dead weight. Where did you learn that?" Physics. Sudden change in weight distribution causes loss of balance and grip strength. I read it in a self-defense manual. His laugh was slightly unhinged. "You used physics to escape a knife-wielding hitman. I'm very practical. You're going to give me a heart attack." But he was smiling now, the wildness fading from his eyes. That was the bravest, stupidest thing I've ever seen. Learned from the best. I never want you in danger again. Then we better find Russo and end this. We found him 3 days later. Or rather, his body. Floating in the harbor, throat slit, with a very clear message carved into his chest. Traitor. Not our work, Marco confirmed when Sebastian got the call. Someone else got to him first. Volkov or Castellano? I asked from where I sat at Sebastian's desk, supposedly studying but mostly failing to concentrate. Neither. Sebastian studied the crime scene photos with a frown. This is internal. Someone in Russo's own organization turned on him. Why? Because he failed spectacularly and became a liability. He set down the photos, pinched the bridge of his nose. Or because someone wanted to curry favor with me by delivering justice. That's twisted. That's business. He moved to where I sat, pulled me up and into his arms. But it's over. Russo's dead, his associates have scattered, and everyone knows attacking you means death. So we won. It didn't feel like winning. We survived. That's close enough. His lips found my temple, lingered there. You were incredible, you know. Brave and smart and completely terrifying. I was scared out of my mind. But you fought anyway. That's what courage is. I leaned into him, let myself finally feel the fear I'd been suppressing for days. I don't want to do that again. I'll spend every day making sure you don't have to. His arms tightened. But Sophie, if you do, if somehow this world demands it, I know you'll handle it. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. Sweet talker. Truth teller. He tilted my chin up, kissed me softly. I love you, and I'm sorry you got pulled into violence because of me. I walked into this with eyes open. I kissed him back, deeper. No apologies for choosing each other. Finals happened in a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline come down. I passed, barely in some cases, brilliantly in others, and officially entered my final year of medical school. Residency applications loomed. The future beckoned with all its complicated glory. Sebastian threw a party, intimate, just family, to celebrate both my survival and my academic success. Gianna made her famous tiramisu. Marco and Thomas told embarrassing stories about Sebastian's youth. I felt accepted in a way I'd never expected, folded into this strange, violent, loving family. You're one of us now, Gianna said quietly, finding me alone on the terrace overlooking the city. Not because you're with Sebastian, but because you fought for family. That matters. I don't regret it. I surprised myself by meaning it. Any of it. Good. Because my cousin is completely gone for you. It's actually adorable and kind of nauseating. I laughed, felt some of the tension finally leave my shoulders. He's not so bad. He's the best. Her expression went serious. But also the most dangerous. Don't forget that, Sophie. Love him. Trust him. But never forget what he is. I won't. I met her eyes. I can't. It's who he is, and I love all of it. Even the parts that terrify me. Then you'll be fine. She squeezed my shoulder. Welcome to the family, Dr. Reed. Later, in Sebastian's bed with the city lights casting shadows through the windows, I traced the still healing cut on my ribs and thought about choices and consequences. Regrets? Sebastian asked, reading my mind like always. About us? Never. I turned to face him, studied the man I'd chosen despite every logical reason not to. About becoming someone who fights at charity galas and dates crime lords? Occasionally. But I'm happier than I've ever been. More myself than I've ever been. I kissed him, soft and sure. You make me brave, Sebastian. Make me believe I can have everything. Career and love and purpose. You can. His hand cupped my face. You will, and I'll be right beside you, making sure nothing stops you. My own personal crime lord cheerleader. Exactly. Very intimidating cheerleading. He pulled me closer. I love you, Sophie Reed, my brave, brilliant, absolutely impossible woman. I love you too. I settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. My dangerous, devoted, surprisingly domestic criminal. We fell asleep tangled together. Two impossible people who'd found each other against all odds and refused to let go. The next morning, I woke to Sebastian making breakfast and arguing with Marco about territorial disputes. I had a surgery to observe at 9 and a study group at 2. Somewhere between medical school and criminal empire, we'd built something that shouldn't work but somehow did. Coffee, Bella? Sebastian offered, perfectly domestic, despite the gun visible in his shoulder holster. Please. I accepted the mug, kissed him good morning. What's the crisis today? Nothing we can't handle. He returned to his conversation, one hand staying on the small of my back. This was my life now. Strange and dangerous and perfectly mine. I'd chosen this path knowing the risks, accepting the consequences, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because some connections were worth fighting for. Some love was worth the danger. And Sebastian Moretti, criminal and protector and impossible man, was absolutely worth everything.